We'll continue with the book of Numbers, chapter 27. The daughters of Zelophehad. Mala, Noah, Hogla, Milcah, and Tirzah were the daughters of Zelophehad, son of Hepher, son of Gilead, son of Machir, son of Manasseh, son of Joseph. They went and stood before Moses, Eleazar the priest, the leaders, and the whole community at the entrance of the tent of the Lord's presence, and said, Our father passed away in the wilderness without leaving any sons. He was not among the followers of Korah, who rebelled against the Lord. He died because of his own sin. Just because he had no sons, why should our father's names disappear from Israel? Give us property among our father's relatives. Now, in verse 3, this is important. Our father died in the wilderness without leaving any sons. He was not among the followers of Korah, who rebelled against the Lord. He died because of his own sin. Died because of his own sin means that he died a natural death. His death fell under the judgment of the entire nation for believing the faithless scouts. Also, up to this point, the Hebrew law gave sons alone the right to inherit. The daughters of Zelophehad, having no brothers, came to Moses to ask for their father's possessions. God then told Moses that if a man passed away without sons, his inheritance would indeed go to his daughters. But the daughters could keep it only if they married within their own tribe, because that way the territorial lines would remain intact. That's going to be in chapter 36, by the way. Now, let's continue now. Moses presented their case to the Lord, and the Lord said to him, What the daughters of Zelophehad request is right. Give them property among their father's relatives. Let his inheritance pass on to them. Tell the people of Israel that whenever a man dies without leaving a son, his daughter is to inherit his property. If he has no daughter, his brothers are to inherit it. If he has no brothers, his father's brothers are to inherit it. If he has no brothers or uncles, then his nearest relative is to inherit it and hold it as his own property. The people of Israel are to observe this as a legal requirement, just as I, the Lord, have commanded you. Joshua is chosen as successor to Moses. The Lord said to Moses, Go up to the Abarim mountains and look out over the land that I'm giving to the Israelites. After you have seen it, you will die, as your brother Aaron did, because both of you rebelled against my command in the wilderness of Zin. When the whole community complained against me at Meribah, you refused to acknowledge my holy power before them. Meribah is a spring at Kadesh in the wilderness of Zin. Moses prayed, Lord God, source of all life, appoint, I pray, a man who can lead the people and can command them in battle, so that your community will not be like sheep without a shepherd. The Lord said to Moses, Take Joshua, son of Nun, a capable man, and place your hands on his head. Have him stand in front of Eleazar the priest and the whole community, and there before all proclaim him as your successor. Give him some of your own authority, so that the whole community of Israel will obey him. He will depend on Eleazar the priest, who will learn my way by using the Urim and the Thummim. In this way, Eleazar would direct Joshua and the whole community of Israel in all their affairs. Moses did as the Lord had commanded him. He had Joshua stand before Eleazar the priest and the whole community. As the Lord had commanded, Moses put his hands on Joshua's head and proclaimed him as his successor. Ironically enough, if you continue reading the story of Joshua from now or even from before up until when he passes away, he never spoke to God face to face like Moses did. But he did communicate with God through the Urim and the Thummim, which the high priest would have in his chest. That's how he communicated with God, but he never spoke to God face to face like Moses had done. All right. Now, Moses asked God to appoint a leader for Israel who was capable of directing external and internal affairs. One who could lead them into battle, but who would also care for their needs. The Lord responded by appointing Joshua. While some in authority are very capable of reaching their goals and others care deeply for the people in their charge, the best leaders are goal-oriented and people-oriented. Now, Moses did not want to leave his work without making sure a new leader was ready to replace him. First, he asked God to help him find a replacement. Then, when Joshua was selected, Moses gave him some of his authority right away to ease the transition into his new position. Moses also clearly told the people that Joshua had the authority and the ability to lead the nation. His display of confidence in Joshua was good for Joshua and the people. Now, to minimize leadership gaps, anyone in leadership position should be training others to carry on the necessary duties should he or she suddenly or eventually have to leave. While you have the opportunity, follow Moses' pattern. Pray, select, develop, and commission. Okay, let's go to chapter 28. The Lord commanded Moses to instruct the Israelites to present to God at the appointed times the required food offerings that are pleasing to him. Now, offerings had to be brought regularly and presented according to prescribed rituals under the correct supervision. Following these rituals took time, and this gave the people opportunity to prepare their hearts for worship. Now, unless our hearts are ready, worship is meaningless. By contrast, God is delighted, and we experience his presence more readily when our hearts are prepared to come before him in a spirit of thankfulness. These are the food offerings that are to be presented to the Lord for the daily burnt offering. 2 one-year-old male lambs without any defects. Offer the first lamb in the morning and the second in the evening, each with a grain offering of 2 pounds of flour mixed with 2 pints of best olive oil. This is a daily offering that is completely burned, which was first offered at Mount Sinai as a food offering, an odor pleasing to the Lord. As the wine offering with the first lamb, pour out at the altar 2 pints of wine. In the evening, offer the second lamb in the same way as the morning, offering together with its wine offering. It also is a food offering, an odor pleasing to the Lord. On the Sabbath day, offer 2 one-year-old male lambs without any defects, 4 pounds of flour mixed with olive oil as a grain offering, and the wine offering. This burnt offering is to be offered every Sabbath in addition to the daily offering with its wine offering. Now, why were extra offerings made on the Sabbath day? The Sabbath was a special day of rest and worship, commemorating creation and the deliverance from Egypt. Don't forget that. Because of the significance of this special day, it was only natural to offer extra sacrifices on this special day. Present a burnt offering to the Lord at the beginning of each month. 2 young bulls, 1 ram, 7 one-year-old male lambs, all without defects. As a grain offering, offer flour mixed with olive oil. With each bull, 6 pounds of flour. With the ram, 4 pounds. And with each lamb, 2 pounds. These burnt offerings are food offerings, an odor pleasing to the Lord. The proper wine offering is 4 pints of wine with each bull, 3 pints with the ram, and 2 pints with each lamb. This is a regulation for the burnt offering for the first day of each month throughout the year, and in addition to the daily burnt offering with its wine offering. Offer 1 male goat as a sin offering. The offerings at the festival of unleavened bread. The Passover festival in honor of the Lord is to be held on the 14th day of the first month. On the 15th day, a religious festival begins which lasts 7 days, during which only bread prepared without yeast is to be eaten. On the first day of the festival, you are to gather for worship, and no work is to be done. Offer a burnt offering as a food offering to the Lord, 2 young bulls, 1 ram, and 7 one-year-old male lambs, all without any defects. Offer the proper grain offering of flour mixed with olive oil, 6 pounds with each bull, 4 pounds with the ram, and 2 pounds with each lamb. Also offer 1 male goat as a sin offering, and in this way perform the ritual of purification for the people. Offer these in addition to the regular morning burnt offering. In the same way, for 7 days offer to the Lord a food offering, an odor pleasing to him. Offer this in addition to the daily burnt offering and wine offering. Meet for worship on the 7th day, and do not work. Okay, let's see here. Okay, everything good. The offering of the harvest festival. On the first day of the harvest festival, when you present the offering of new grain to the Lord, you are to gather for worship, and no work is to be done. Offer a burnt offering as an odor pleasing to the Lord, 2 young bulls, 1 ram, and 7 one-year-old male lambs, all without any defects. Offer the proper grain offering of flour mixed with olive oil, 6 pounds with each bull, 4 pounds with the ram, and 2 pounds with each lamb. Also offer 1 male goat as a sin offering, and in this way perform the ritual of purification for the people. Offer these and the wine offering in addition to the daily burnt offering and grain offering. 29. On the first day of the 7th month, you are to gather for worship, and no work is to be done. On that day, trumpets are to be blown. Present a burnt offering to the Lord, an odor pleasing to him. 1 young bull, 1 ram, and 7 one-year-old male lambs, all without any defects. Offer the proper grain offering of flour mixed with olive oil, 6 pounds of flour with the bull, 4 pounds with the ram, and 2 pounds with each lamb. Hold on, please. There we go. Also offer 1 male goat as a sin offering, and in this way perform the ritual of purification for the people. Offer these in addition to the regular burnt offerings for the first day of the month, with its grain offering, and the daily burnt offering with its grain offerings and wine offering. These food offerings are an odor pleasing to the Lord. The offerings of the Day of Atonement. Gather for worship on the 10th day of the 7th month. Eat no food and do not work. Offer as a burnt offering to the Lord an odor pleasing to him, 1 young bull, 1 ram, and 7 one-year-old male lambs, all without defects. Offer the proper grain offering of flour mixed with olive oil, 6 pounds of flour with the bull, 4 pounds with the ram, and 2 pounds with each lamb. Also offer 1 male goat as a sin offering, in addition to the goat offered in the ritual of purification for the people, and the daily burnt offering with its grain offering and wine offering. The offerings of the Festival of Shelters. Gather for worship on the 15th day of the 7th month. Celebrate this festival in honor of the Lord for 7 days and do not work. On this first day, offer a food offering to the Lord, an odor pleasing to him. 13 young bulls, 2 rams, and 14 one-year-old male lambs, all without defects. Offer the proper grain offering of flour mixed with olive oil, 6 pounds of flour with a bull, 4 pounds with each ram, and 2 pounds with each lamb, with the required wine offerings. Also offer 1 male goat as a sin offering. Offer these in addition to the daily burnt offering, with its grain offering and wine offering. Let's see. 17. On the second day, offer 12 young bulls, 2 rams, and 14 one-year-old male lambs, all without any defects. Offer with them all the other offerings required for the first day. On the third day, offer 11 young bulls, 2 rams, and 14 one-year-old male lambs, all without any defects. Offer with them all the other offerings required for the first day. On the fourth day, offer 10 young bulls, 2 rams, and 14 one-year-old male lambs, all without any defects. Offer with them all the other offerings required for the first day. On the fifth day, offer 9 young bulls, 2 rams, and 14 one-year-old male lambs, all without any defects. Offer with them all the other offerings required for the first day. On the sixth day, offer 8 young bulls, 2 rams, and 14 one-year-old male lambs, all without any defects. Offer with them all the other offerings required for the first day. On the seventh day, offer 7 young bulls, 2 rams, and 14 one-year-old male lambs, all without defects. Offer with them all the other offerings required for the first day. And finally, on the eighth day, gather for worship and do not work. Offer a burnt offering as a food offering to the Lord, an odor pleasing to him, 1 young bull, 1 ram, and 7 one-year-old male lambs, all without defects. Offer with them all the other offerings required for the first day. These are the regulations concerning the burnt offerings, grain offerings, wine offerings, and fellowship offerings that you are to make to the Lord at your appointed festivals. These are in addition to the offerings you give in fulfillment of a vow or as a free will offering. So Moses told the people of Israel everything that the Lord had commanded him. So, about these festivals, the Festival of Trumpets in verse 1 and 2 demonstrated 3 important principles that we should follow in our worship today. 3 of them. 1. The people gathered together to celebrate and worship. There is an extra benefit to be gained from worshiping with other believers. 2. The normal daily routine was suspended and no hard work was done. It takes time to worship, and setting aside this time allows us to adjust our attitudes before and reflect afterwards. And 3, the people gave God something of value by sacrificing animals as burnt offerings to him. We show our commitment to God when we give him things that are of value to us. God desires wholehearted worship. Our gift of money presented generously to God's work also demonstrates our thanks to him. And the best gift, of course, is ourselves. Now, the Day of Atonement was the most solemn day of the year. This is from verse 7 to 11. It involved fasting, prayer, repentance, and a series of offerings to atone for the sins of the people. This was the one day each year that the high priest would enter the holiest part of the tabernacle and seek atonement for the sins of the people. The word atonement means the state of being at one with another. In other words, atonement is the process of making sinners who are separated from God at one with God again, restoring their relationships with him. Forgiveness is the key to a restored relationship. The sacrifices themselves didn't actually earn God's forgiveness for the people's sin. The sacrifices were symbolic of the heartfelt desires of the people to be forgiven, to be at one with God again. Like all sacrifices we read about in the Old Testament, they pointed to the ultimate and final sacrifice of Jesus for the sins of the people, because of which we are forgiven, and don't forget, restored to a relationship with God once and for all. And then the Festival of Shelters, verse 12 through 39, was celebrated just after the Day of Atonement each year. The celebration lasted a full week and included sacrifices offered to the Lord each day. The people would build small shelters made of palm branches to remind them of the time before the Israelites lived permanently in the Promised Land. In other words, when they were traveling to the wilderness. It marked the end of harvest season and was time to pray for rain to bring new crops. Jesus was at this festival when he promised living water to those who believed in him. This, you can read about it in John chapter 7, verse 37 and 38. Okay. Rules about vows. Moses gave the following instructions to the leaders of the tribes of Israel. When a man makes a vow to give something to the Lord or takes an oath to abstain from something, he must not break his promise, but must do everything that he said he would. Right here, Moses reminded the people that their promises to God and others must be kept. In ancient times, people did not sign written contracts. A person's word was as binding as a signature. To make a vow even more binding, an offering was given along with it. No one was forced by law to make a vow, but if one was made, vows had to be fulfilled. Breaking a vow meant broken trust and a broken relationship. Trust is still the basis of our relationships with God and others. A broken promise today is actually just as harmful as it was in Moses' day. People cannot trust you anymore when you lie, when you make a promise. I'll be there at 6 o'clock and you don't show up. I'll be there at 10:30. Oh, I promise I'll do that work for you tomorrow. And that never happens. That's just as bad as breaking your promise. Verse 3. When a young woman still living in her father's house makes a vow to give something to the Lord or promises to abstain from something, she must do everything that she vowed or promised unless her father raises an objection when he hears about it. But if her father forbids her to fulfill the vow when he hears about it, she is not required to keep it. The Lord will forgive her because her father refused to let her keep it. If an unmarried woman makes a vow, whether deliberately or carelessly, or promises to abstain from something and then marries, she must do everything that she vowed or promised unless her husband raises an objection when he hears about it. But if her husband forbids her to fulfill the vow, when he hears about it, she is not required to keep it. The Lord will forgive her. A widow or a divorced woman must keep every vow she makes and every promise to abstain from something. If a married woman makes a vow or promises to abstain from something, she must do everything that she vowed or promised unless her husband raises an objection when he hears about it. But if her husband forbids her to fulfill the vow when he hears about it, she is not required to keep it. The Lord will forgive her, because her husband prevented her from keeping her vow. Her husband has a right to affirm or to annul any vow or promise that she has made. But if by the day after he hears of the vow he has raised no objection, she must do everything that she has vowed or promised. He has affirmed the vow by not objecting on the day he heard about it. But if he later annuls the vow, he must suffer the consequences for the failure to fulfill the vow. These are the rules that the Lord gave Moses concerning vows made by an unmarried woman living in her father's house or by a married woman. Now, what we read right now, verse 3 to 5 actually, under Israelite law, parents could overrule their children's vows. This helped young people avoid the consequences of making foolish promises or costly commitments. From this law comes an important principle for parents and children. Young people still living at home should seek their parents' help when they make decisions. A parent's experience could save a child from a serious mistake. Parents, however, should exercise their authority with caution and grace. They should let children learn from their mistakes while protecting them from disaster. The holy war against Midian. The Lord said to Moses, "Punish the Midianites for what they did to the people of Israel. After you have done that, you will die." So Moses said to the people, "Get ready for war so that you can attack Midian and punish them for what they did to the Lord. From each tribe of Israel send 1,000 men to war." So 1,000 men were chosen from each tribe, a total of 12,000 men, ready for battle. Moses sent them to war under the command of Phinehas, the son of Eleazar the priest, who took charge of the sacred objects and the trumpets for giving signals. Now, people may be wondering here, what's going on here? Why is the priest's son taking leadership of this battle. Why the priest, soon to be priest? He's Eleazar's son, right? Phineas. Phineas is taking charge of this war because this is a holy war. It's called a holy war. In case you guys don't know, it's a war like any other war, but it's on the principle of something happening bad in their religion. If you guys recall, we talked about Balaam, remember, yesterday and the day before? This is what I was telling you yesterday, that we're going to talk about it in chapter 31. We're going to hear about it right now, actually, right here. Balaam was told to curse the people of Israel. He kept telling Balak, I can't do something if God tells me not to do it. Okay, so, apparently, that was the end of that, and he went home, right? Not so. Remember I told you he didn't really go home? Look what he did. He came back, and he basically convinced Balak to have the Midianites and basically everything that could go wrong with the Israelites. To have the Midianite women and Amorites, everybody, all these women sleeping with the Israelite men, feasting on food offered to their idols, and having sex with them. All these things were wrong in the eyes of God. And so this is a way that Balaam got Israel to commit a very deadly sin. And eventually 24,000 Israelites died because of this sin. But it was Balaam, and of course with Balak's, goading on, but Balaam was the one that did it. So here, but it is a holy war. That's why you see Phineas, a priest, being in charge of the army here, because it was a holy war. Okay, let's continue. They attacked Midian as the Lord had commanded Moses, and killed all the men, including the 5 kings of Midian, Evi, Rakem, Zur, Hur, and Reba. They also killed Balaam, the son of Beor. See, they killed him too. The people of Israel captured the Midianite women and children, took their cattle and their flocks, plundered all their wealth, and burned all their cities and camps. They took all the loot that they had captured, including the prisoners and the animals, and brought them to Moses and Eleazar, and to the community of the people of Israel, who were at the camp on the plains of Moab, across the Jordan from Jericho. So what's going on here? The Midianites were a nomadic people. They traveled. People who were descended from Abraham and his second wife, Keturah. The land of Midian lay far to the south of Canaan, but large bands of Midianites roamed many miles from their homeland, searching for grazing areas for their flocks. Such a group was near the promised land when the Israelites arrived. When Moses fled from Egypt, he had taken refuge in the land of Midian. This is in Exodus chapter 2. His wife and father-in-law were Midianites. Despite this alliance, the Israelites and Midianites became bitter enemies of Israel as Israel moved to settle in Canaan. Now, we're going to read right now about how the army returns. I'll tell you a little bit about this right now. Let's see. 13. Moses, Eleazar, and all the other leaders of the community went out of the camp to meet the army. Moses became angry with the officers, the commanders of battalions and companies, who had returned from the war. He asked them, "Why have you kept all the women alive? Remember that it was the women who followed Balaam's instructions." Here we have Balaam again. Remember that it was the women who followed Balaam's instructions, and at Peor, he led the people to be unfaithful to the Lord. That was what brought the epidemic on the Lord's people. So now kill every boy and kill every woman who has had sexual intercourse, but keep alive for yourselves all the girls and all the women who are virgins. Now all of you who have killed anyone or have touched a corpse must stay outside the camp for 7 days. On the 3rd day and on the 7th day, purify yourselves and the women you have captured. You must also purify every piece of clothing and everything made of leather, goat's hair, or wood. Eleazar the priest said to the men who had returned from battle, These are the regulations that the Lord has given to Moses. Everything that will not burn, such as gold, silver, bronze, iron, tin, or lead, is to be purified by passing it through fire. Everything else is to be purified by the water of purification. On the seventh day you must wash your clothes, then you'll be ritually clean and will be permitted to enter the camp. So, because the Midianites were responsible for enticing Israel into worshiping false gods, God commanded Israel to destroy them. When we discover sin in our lives, we must deal with it promptly and completely, just as Moses did by removing the influence of the Midianites. When the Israelites later entered the promised land, it was their different attitude towards sin that eventually ruined them. When God points out sin, it's good to act quickly to remove it from your life. Now, Balaam's story. Balaam. Balaam's story, taken alone, would lead us to believe that Balaam was an honest and God-fearing man. But here is the first of a much biblical evidence that Balaam was not the good man he might have appeared to be. We first read about Balaam in Numbers 22 to 24. Division of the loot. The Lord said to Moses, "You and Eleazar, together with the other leaders of the community, are to count everything that has been captured, including the prisoners and the animals. Divide what was taken into equal two parts, one part for the soldiers and the other part for the rest of the community. From the part that belongs to the soldiers, withhold as a tax for the Lord 1 out of every 500 prisoners, and the same proportion of the cattle, donkeys, sheep, and goats. Give them to Eleazar the priest as a special contribution to the Lord. From the part given to the rest of the people, take 1 out of every 50 prisoners, and the same proportion of the cattle, donkeys, sheep, and goats. Give them to the Levites who are in charge of the Lord's tent." Moses and Eleazar did what the Lord commanded. So let's see here. God had told Moses that the Israelites were to give a portion of the war, loot, spoils, or whatever you want to call it, as an offering. Another portion was to go to the people who remain behind. Similarly, the money we earn is not ours alone. Everything we possess comes directly or indirectly from God and ultimately belongs to Him. We should return a portion to Him and also share a portion with those in need. The following is a list of what was captured by the soldiers, in addition to what they kept for themselves. 675,000 sheep and goats, 72,000 cattle, 61,000 donkeys, 32,000 virgins. The half share of the soldiers was 337,500 sheep and goats, of which 675 were the tax for the Lord. 36,000 cattle for the soldiers, of which 72 were the tax for the Lord. 30,500 donkeys for the soldiers, of which 61 were the tax for the Lord. And 16,000 virgins for the soldiers, of which 32 were the tax for the Lord. So Moses gave Eleazar the tax as a special contribution to the Lord, as the Lord had commanded. The share of the community was the same as that for the soldiers: 337,500 sheep and goats, 36,000 cattle, 30,500 donkeys, and 16,000 virgins. From this share, Moses took 1 out of every 50 prisoners and animals, and, as the Lord had commanded, gave them to the Levites who were in charge of the Lord's tent. Then the officers who had commanded the army went to Moses and reported, "Sir, we have counted the soldiers under our command, and not one of them is missing. So we are bringing the gold ornaments, armlets, bracelets, rings, earrings, and necklaces that each of us has taken. We offer them to the Lord as a payment for our lives, so that He will protect us." Moses and Eleazar received the gold, all of which was in the form of ornaments. The total contribution of the officers weighed over 400 pounds. Those who were not officers kept the loot they had taken. So Moses and Eleazar took the gold to the tent so that the Lord would protect the people of Israel. Let's see. We can do another one. The tribes east of the Jordan. Okay. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, we're going to read from verse 1 to verse 42. 3 tribes, Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. Those 3 tribes wanted to live east of the Jordan River. Some people call it the Transjordan area, but it's east of the Jordan River. On land they had already conquered. Moses immediately assumed they had selfish motives and were trying to avoid helping the others fight for the land across the river on the right side of the Jordan River. But Moses jumped to the wrong conclusion. In dealing with people, we must find out all the facts before making up our minds. We shouldn't automatically assume that their motives are wrong, even if their plans sound suspicious. Let's read about that here. The tribes of Reuben and Gad had a lot of livestock. When they saw how suitable the land of Jazer and Gilead was for cattle, they went to Moses, Eleazar, and the other leaders of the community and said, "This region which the Lord has helped the Israelites occupy, the towns of Ataroth, Dibon, Jazer, Nimrah, Heshbon, Eleale, Sibmah, Nebo, and Beon, is good land for livestock, and we have so much livestock. Please give us this land as our property, and do not make us cross the Jordan River and settle there." Moses replied, "Do you want to stay here while the other Israelites go to war? How dare you try to discourage the people of Israel from crossing the Jordan into the land which the Lord has given them? That is what your fathers did when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to explore the land. They went as far as Eshcol Valley and saw the land, but when they returned, they discouraged the people from entering the land which the Lord had given them. The Lord became angry that day and made a promise. I swear that because they did not remain loyal to me, none of the men 20 years old or older who came out of Egypt will enter the land that I promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This included everyone except Caleb, son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, and Joshua, son of Nun. They remained loyal to the Lord. The Lord became angry with the people and made them wander in the wilderness 40 years until the whole generation that had displeased him was dead. And now you have taken your ancestors' place, a new generation of sinful people, ready to bring down the fierce anger of the Lord on Israel again. If you people of Reuben and Gad refuse to follow him now, he will once again abandon all these people in the wilderness, and you will be responsible for their destruction." Okay. They approached Moses and said, "First, allow us to build stone enclosures here for our sheep and fortified towns for our dependents. Then we will be ready to go with the other Israelites into battle and lead the attack until we have settled them in the land that will be theirs. In the meantime, our dependents can live here in the fortified towns, safe from the people of this land. We will not return to our houses until all the other Israelites have taken possession of the land assigned to them. We will not take possession of any property among them on the other side of the Jordan, because we have received our share here east of the Jordan." Moses answered, "If you really mean what you say, then here in the presence of the Lord get ready to go into battle. All you fighting men are to cross the Jordan, and under the command of the Lord they are to attack our enemies until the Lord defeats them and takes possession of the land. After that, you may return, because you will have fulfilled your obligation to the Lord and to the other Israelites. Then the Lord will acknowledge that this land east of the Jordan is yours. But if you do not keep your promise, I warn you that you will be sinning against the Lord. Make no mistake about it. You will be punished for your sin. So build your towns and the enclosures for your sheep, but do what you have promised." The men of Gad and Reuben said, "Sir, we will do as you command. Our wives and children and our cattle and sheep will remain here in the towns of Gilead. but all of us are ready to go into battle under the Lord's command. We will cross the Jordan and fight, just as you have said." So Moses gave these commands to Eleazar, Joshua, and the other leaders of Israel. "If the men of Gad and Reuben cross the Jordan ready for battle at the Lord's command, and if with their help you're able to conquer the land, then give them the land of Gilead as their property. But if they do not cross the Jordan and go into battle with you, they are to receive their share of the property in the land of Canaan, as you do." The men of Gad and Reuben answered, "Sir, we will do as the Lord has commanded. Under his command we will cross into the land of Canaan, go into battle, so that we can retain our property here east of the Jordan." So Moses assigned to the tribes of Gad and Reuben and to the half-tribe of Manasseh all the territory of King Sihon of the Amorites and King Og of Bashan, including the towns and the country around them. The tribe of Gad rebuilt the fortified towns of Dibon, Ataroth, Aroer, Atroth, Shofan, Jazer, Jogbeha, Beth Nimran, and Beth Haran. The tribe of Reuben rebuilt Heshbon, Elealeh, Kiriataim, Nebo, Baal Meon. This name was changed, and Sibma. They gave new names to the towns they rebuilt. The clans of Machir, son of Manasseh, invaded the land of Gilead, occupied it, and drove out the Amorites who were there. So Moses gave Gilead to the clan of Machir, and they lived there. Jair of the tribe of Manasseh attacked and captured some villages, and named them villages of Jair. Noba attacked and captured Kenath and his villages, and he renamed them Noba after himself. Amen.